Hey Entre Nation, Jeff Lerner here, and I'm going to be talking in this video about dealing with change in business and in life. We live in an ever-changing world that's had to adapt to some mega trends, especially recently, like the COVID-19 virus and its massive impact, but other trends that have been going on for a while, like globalization, digitalization, climate change, resource scarcity, population growth, all kinds of stuff, right? And these have a direct impact on businesses, on employees, entrepreneurs, and frankly, well, everyone. And change can feel scary and uncertain, and I'm sure that you, like everyone, have felt that. But what I want to share with you in this video are some positive ways to survive and actually thrive with change. I'll show you how to adapt to change, how to be mindful, and even how to create massive success through how we respond to change. Responding well to change has another name. It's called progress. So let's make some. And if you're new to this channel, hit subscribe for me. I share videos every week on creating your most awesome life. All right, let's get into the video. Change management is not a new concept. It's an approach that prepares and assists organizations, teams, and individuals for dealing with change. And the key takeaway is how to be prepared for change. But how exactly can you do that when the world is constantly in chaos and change, by definition, can be highly unpredictable? How can you as a business thrive? How can your team feel supported? And especially, how can you use change as a catalyst to progress and massive success? Well, the first way is you have to always be adaptable. If you're part of a company with a staff, maybe you're the CEO, maybe you're an employee, you have to know that there will be daily changes. Staffing turns over, skill requirements change, employee duties change, there's changes to management policies, changes to management styles. So to be able to deal with these types of changes, you need to know your industry really, really well. And you need to stay current with what's working in the marketplace. But adaptability, more than all those other things, will always be the biggest way to use change in a positive way. So let me give you a real life example. There's a company called Board of Innovation. Now, that doesn't mean that they are bored of innovation. It means board like B-O-A-R-D. The company is called, they're like a board of innovation, right? And it's a consulting firm who were having challenge attracting millennials to come and work for them because millennials expect a more entrepreneurial environment. And as somebody who teaches entrepreneurship and entrepreneurialism, that makes me happy. Who can blame them for wanting to have a place to go be a little more creative and innovative, right? So the way that Board of Innovation created change within their company was to set up what they call intrapreneurship programs, with an I, not an E. And that encourages employees to think and act like entrepreneurs within the structure of their company. This is actually a big trend now in the corporate world, who's recognized that people have a desire to have a little more freedom and get to be creative in their role within a company. And that's a great example, Board of Innovation, of a company adapting to change in an inspiring way. Well, what about unprecedented change, unpredictable change? How do you manage that? Well, let me give you another example. So when Richard Branson, who's one of the most creative entrepreneurial people in the world, at least in the world of business, when he first released Virgin Airlines' initial test flight back in 1984, he had rented a Boeing 747. And sure enough, it goes up in the air and a flock of birds flew into the engine. No one could have predicted that this would happen. And so the airline, they couldn't get certified to start carrying passengers without a successful test flight on a working plane, but it couldn't get the money to repair the plane without being certified. The way Richard Branson dealt with that was, instead of panicking or freaking out or giving up, he stayed optimistic, he stayed positive, he stayed adaptable, and he, working really fast, went and restructured his other companies and pulled money out of other ventures, loaned it to Virgin, got the repairs done quickly, and then once he got certified and started doing business, he was able to pay the loan back to his other companies. So the key is, he tried again. He didn't give up. Virgin passed its test flight and became one of his multiple in his portfolio of billion-dollar companies. And tip number 2 is to actually plan for change. Well, how do you plan for change? Is that even possible? Well, you know, change in business is inevitable because of the super fast-paced, ever-changing world that we live in. And some changes are forced and they're maybe not as predictable. Things like global crises, pandemics, we're in one right now, economic downturn, we're in one of those right now, right? Or having birds fly into your airplane. And other changes obviously are predictable and they're a natural part of evolution. But change itself should always be predicted. And the ones that are predictable, they can actually be planned out. For example, implementing new technology, maybe improving the needs of your customers, maybe incorporating new laws or dealing with new regulations or dealing with new competitors in your industry. As the expression goes, fail to plan and you plan to fail. So how do you plan for change, whether you can actually predict the specific changes or not? The way to plan for change is to have something you can always lean on that is forever unchanging, even when there's change. And in business, that is your mission, specifically your mission statement. And no matter what changes come, you will always be able to go back to your mission statement as something to anchor to. You can write out your plans, you can write out any changes that you're dealing with, write out any change responses that you feel need to be implemented, document them, communicate them to everyone, your team, your staff, your clients, depending on the situation. But the ultimate answer to how to deal with change and what those responses should be is always gonna come from having crystal clear clarity around your mission statement, and the values and priorities that stem from your mission statement. What is actually your desired outcome? That's actually what your mission statement ought to tell you. And what are the reasons and benefits and the goal, if it was a predictable or functional change, what is the reason why it's happening? And therefore, what tasks need to be done and who needs to support or be involved in those tasks? And then how does the change impact your goals or your targets? What would the milestones be for measuring how you respond or adapt to that change? And what's the timeline for those milestones? That's a change management plan. And as part of your change management plan, again, I recommend that you have a strong mission statement that you can use as a filter for all your responses. And if you're like, well, that's great, but how do I create a mission statement for my life or my business? I'm not a big company. Maybe I'm just a guy or girl working from home on the computer, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can always craft an effective mission statement. In fact, I highly recommend that you do, not only for your business, but for your whole life. And I actually have a video about that I'll leave in the description below, so you can go watch it after this video. It's a link on how to create a good mission statement. And by the way, make money is not a valid mission statement. It's not good for business, it's not good for life. And the reason is because it focuses on your needs, not those of your customer or the people around you. And tip number 3 for dealing with change is to communicate. So now that you've dealt with the change, you've accepted it, you figured out how you're going to respond to the change, it's time to communicate that response to everyone who is going to be affected by it. So let's talk about how to do that well. A Harvard Business Review study found that company leaders are most effective in building support for change when they communicate a vision that clearly explains not only what will change, but also what will stay the same. When individuals can see what the end state will look like and what it will mean for them, they're less likely to experience anxiety or resist the change. Also, a collaborative approach to change is recommended, and that you involve as many people as possible. This empowers your staff, your colleagues, or your team to be supportive of the change as they feel a sense of connection because they were involved in the response. And also consider that your communication around the change needs to be a two-way street where everyone can communicate back and forth, ask questions, or provide feedback with each other. This allows changes to feel inspiring and opportunistic rather than scary and suppressive. And tip number 4, which is one of the hardest things to do, is to not just deal with change, but to actually celebrate change. Think about some of the biggest leaders throughout history, people like Martin Luther King, people like Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, or in business, people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. They all have something in common. They all celebrate change. They advocate for change. They embrace it. They're driven by it. They know that if they take calculated risks, then big changes and big progress within the entire world could happen. Without these people who encourage change and who lived way outside of what most people would consider the comfort zone on a daily basis, where would the world be? Honestly, living in a world without change would be pretty terrible. So how about celebrating the changes that have already happened in the world and the business world and embracing new ones as they come along? Again, if companies like Microsoft, Apple, Google hadn't taken calculated risks, and even just launching for those companies was embracing change and driving change, where would we be? The point is, change doesn't have to be negative. Human beings resist and resent change as a default setting. That doesn't mean it's negative. It means that's a challenge for us. That's something we actually need to change. It's a challenge for us to overcome the way we tend to resist change. Most great things in this world have come from change. So what's the big difference between a business that just survives change and one that actually thrives in change? And the difference is simple. One is just, getting by. The other is actually using change as fuel to take your life or your business to the next level. And even, I have found, being grateful for change, because you know that ultimately something better will come out of it. Gratitude is a huge element in not just the change conversation, but pretty much every aspect when it comes to improving your quality of life. I have a whole video on gratitude and how being grateful can change your life. I'll leave that in the description as well. And the number 5 tip for weathering change and really seizing the opportunity of change is to be innovative. How do you take your business to the next level? By embracing change. That question has to constantly be asked. And the answer is to get out of experiencing change like a victim, like it's just something we can't control. It's just something that's happening to us, or it's something that we've been burdened with. Embrace the change and actually hit it back, right? They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Well, what if we tweak that to be when change forces us to adapt, the adaptable force change? So really look within yourself. How do you actually feel about innovation and dealing with change? Are you intimidated or are you inspired? Well, to really master organizational or individual change management, you must realize that you hold immense power to grow your business, or to grow your role within someone else's business, or even to grow yourself personally. You hold immense power, especially in times of change. But first, you have to embrace that change is a transformational force, and then you need to commit to execution of whatever the appropriate response is. Most of us, we don't change unless we really, really have to. But what if you actually choose to be a change maker? What if you get in the habit of innovating even when it isn't being forced on you? Well, then it wouldn't seem so scary and uncomfortable if and when it is. We've covered a lot today about adapting to change. Most importantly, all change is personal. All change must start with you. If your environment changes, change hasn't actually happened. When you respond to that personally, individually, or organizationally, that's when change actually happens. And positive change management means being adaptable, not giving up, and planning and preparing that change is coming. You've also learned about great communication skills, how to even celebrate change, and how to be innovative. And right now as I'm shooting this video, depending on when you see it, it may not be, close to the time I'm in right now, but right now as I'm shooting it, we're in a world that's been impacted by this pandemic called the COVID-19 virus. And what I just want to suggest is that everything that has been talked about in this video is the right response to COVID. If you whether you've been sent home from work, or you're, socially distanced, or you have to stay home more, you're not seeing your friends, whatever it is, this is a massive opportunity for improvement. I can tell you when COVID happened, when the stay-at-home stuff all happened, I immediately deleted all the news from my life. I don't care. I don't want to see the TV. I don't need to know what's happening. I deleted most social media from my life. I check in on it periodically just for business purposes. I don't go to the news feed. I don't care what people have to say right now. And I said, how can I use this window of time as an opportunity for improvement? Because improvement is a form of change. And frankly, that's the only form of change that I've been interested in. And it's been great. It's been one of the best periods of my life. Now, I would love to hear from you, and specifically, what changes are you dealing with at the moment? What changes will you be implementing in your life and your business? And how's it going? How has your response been so far? And what are you planning from here? So please do go ahead and comment below with your answers, and click the like button on the video if you got any value from this. And also, don't forget to hit subscribe. I post videos regularly and it really, really helps the channel when you do. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.